Our story begins in a time of great sadness and confusion. The priest, Ezekiel, a man who loved God deeply, finds himself far away from home. He is living by a river called Kibar in the land of Babylon, which is a powerful and foreign kingdom. Many years before, the armies of Babylon had conquered Ezekiel's homeland of Judah and had taken many of its people, including Ezekiel, away as prisoners. They are called exiles, which means people forced to live away from their own country. Ezekiel misses Jerusalem terribly, the city with the beautiful temple where he used to serve God. He and the other exiles feel lost and hopeless, as if God has forgotten them. They wonder how they can worship God in such a strange land. Then, one ordinary day, when Ezekiel is 30 years old, everything changes. The sky seems to open up, and Ezekiel sees something that is not a dream, but a true vision from God. It is the first of many strange and wonderful sights that will explain to Ezekiel what is happening to his people and what God plans for the future. In this incredible vision, Ezekiel looks up and sees a great storm coming from the north. There's wind and lightning and a huge glowing cloud. But in the middle of the storm, Ezekiel sees 4 living creatures that are unlike any animal he has ever seen. Each one has 4 faces: the face of a man, the face of a lion, the face of an ox, and the face of an eagle. They have wings that touch each other, and they move together perfectly without turning. Beside each creature is a wheel, but it is a wheel within a wheel, sparkling like topaz and covered all over with eyes. The sound of their wings is like the roar of rushing waters. Above the creatures is a breathtaking sight, a platform of sparkling crystal, and above that, a throne made of brilliant blue sapphire. On the throne is a figure glowing like fiery metal, surrounded by a rainbow of light. Ezekiel realizes he is looking at the glory, the magnificent presence of the Lord God himself. God speaks to Ezekiel from the throne. He tells Ezekiel that he is sending him as a prophet to the stubborn people of Israel, whether they listen or not. Then God stretches out a hand, and in it is a scroll covered with writing on both sides. The words written are songs of sadness, mourning, and woe. God tells Ezekiel to eat the scroll, and when he does, it tastes as sweet as honey in his mouth. This means that even though Ezekiel's message will be hard and full of warnings, it is a sweet and good thing to speak God's true words. Now, filled with God's words, Ezekiel has a very important job. God calls him a watchman. In those days, a watchman stood on the city walls to look out for danger. If he saw an enemy army coming, he would blow a trumpet to warn the people so they could get ready. God tells Ezekiel that he is now a spiritual watchman for his people. If God warns a wicked person to turn from their evil ways, and Ezekiel does not tell them, then that person will die in their sin, and God will hold Ezekiel responsible. But if Ezekiel does warn them, even if they do not listen, Ezekiel will have saved his own life by being faithful. This is a very serious responsibility. Now, filled with God's words, Ezekiel begins to act out God's messages in strange ways so the people will pay attention. He builds a tiny model of Jerusalem and acts out a siege around it with an iron plate. He lies on his side for many days to show the years of punishment for Israel's sins. He cuts his hair and divides it into thirds, burning one part, striking another with a sword, and scattering the last part to the wind, showing how the people will be judged by famine, war, and exile. Through all these actions, God explains that he is like a shepherd whose sheep have been scattered because other bad shepherds, meaning Israel's kings and leaders, have not taken care of them. But God promises that he himself will search for his sheep, rescue them from the places they are scattered, and bring them back to good pasture. Many years pass in exile. The people feel like their nation is dead and gone forever. They say, "Our bones are dried up, and our hope is lost." Then God gives Ezekiel his most famous vision. In this vision, God's Spirit carries Ezekiel to the middle of a very wide valley. This valley is not full of grass or trees. It is filled with bones, very many bones, and they are completely dry, as if they had been there for 100 years. God asks Ezekiel a strange question. "Son of man, can these bones live?" Ezekiel wisely answers, "Lord God, only you know that." God tells Ezekiel to speak to the bones. He tells him to say, "Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life." So Ezekiel prophesies just as he is commanded. As he is speaking, a rattling sound begins to fill the valley. The bones start to move. They come together bone to bone. Then tendons and flesh appear on them, and skin covers them, but they are still not alive. God tells Ezekiel to call for the breath or wind or spirit to come from the four winds and breathe into these bodies. Ezekiel does so, and breath enters them. They come to life and stand up on their feet, a vast and mighty army. God explains, "These bones are the whole people of Israel. I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them and bring you back to the land of Israel." This vision is a promise that God can bring life and a nation back together, even from a situation that seems completely hopeless. Later, God shows Ezekiel one last great vision of a new, perfect temple in Jerusalem. From under the doorway of this new temple, a tiny trickle of water begins to flow east. As Ezekiel follows it, the angel of the Lord measures 1,000 cubits, and the water is ankle deep. Another 1,000, and it is knee-deep. Another, and it is waist-deep. Soon it is a river so deep Ezekiel cannot cross unless he swims. This river flows down to the Dead Sea, where nothing can live, and where it flows, the salt water becomes fresh. Every kind of fish will live there. On both banks of the river, all kinds of trees will grow. Their fruit will be for food, and their leaves will be for healing. This beautiful river shows God's final promise that from His presence will flow a never-ending stream of life, healing, and blessing for His people and for the whole world forever.